Hello! This episode, like all of our episodes, is brought to you by our fine patrons at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you very much for every little bit you can give. Real quick note, there's a weird little audio thing that happens after Peeve leaves us, where there'll be a little bit of echo on Kole's track from my track. It was an editing thing. I actually know what it is. It won't happen again, but I'm under a bit of a time crunch. I'm getting this episode out a little bit late anyway, so I don't want to re-edit it. It takes forever to re-export, and it is there's no necessary guarantee that it won't happen again. So please bear with us. I really do appreciate that. And on to the show.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Unkindled are we, and fast on the trail of the Lords absconded? Then these red eyes are for you. Use them to pillage embers and briefly heighten your strength for your duty. What else are unkindled ashes good for?
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And my name would be Peeve Peeverson.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a PvP favorite.
Something like that. And this week it is a special episode. We're doing one of our specials. And as you heard, we are going to be talking about PvP with our guest, Peeve Peeverson. Thank you so much for joining us, Peeve.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So much alliteration. This is the most Seussical kind of episode we've done, the PvP with Peeve Peeverson report.
Yeah. It's a lot of people tend to think that my people say, "Oh, Peeve Peeverson, PV Peeverson." I get it, and I'm like, it took so long for me to be like, "Wait, what?" Like, oh no, it's complete coincidence.
Yep. And until you described the name at the start, I had assumed that it was a very clever online name because it fits.
Exactly. No, it's not. I could describe the story, but that's a whole different thing. I've said it on stream a few times, and people are still just like, "What?"
Let's just call it like nominative determinism. Just
it sounds like something somebody would say, like, "There goes Peeve Peeverson. Like, he's a regular PvP Peeverson." It sounds like that kind of thing. Thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. I think most people who listen to the show are familiar with you and your work, but can you speak a little bit how people might know you, what you do online, and then how you kind of got into that, how you got into this series of games?
Well, I'm primarily a Twitch streamer these days. I started out on YouTube, and I mean, if you go on Twitch and you watch Dark Souls content, I'm sure you've come across my stream a few times. But yeah, that would be what I do these days. And the way I got into it was, I played Demon Souls back around release, which I believe was in 2009. One of my coworkers, whenever I worked at GameStop, they had mentioned, they kept trying to tell me about all the stuff that goes on. They're like, "Oh no, dude, you have this blood stain mechanic where you can see someone's ghost as they died and all this." And I'm like, that sounds okay, I might try that someday. And then one of my friends came over with the game, and the moment I got my hands on Demon Souls for 5 minutes, I got up, I went to the store and bought myself a copy. And then whenever Dark Souls 1 rolled around, I was so just amped up for it that I played the hell out of it, and I ended up getting to number 2 in the Xbox 360 Book of the Guilty.
Oh wow.
I kind of built up a name for myself back before the Book of the Guilty just went to complete garbage,
right?
Where everyone's cheating and getting 60,000 indictments, and so back whenever it actually meant something, I was number 2 for the first few months, and it got to the point that there was people in the wiki chat and stuff that wanted to watch my I guess my invasions and stuff, because I'd always go in there and just post these big, long, drawn out walls of text stories. And someone was finally like, "You should probably get something to record." And I was like, huh. I never considered it. So like whenever I started on YouTube, I like had like 300 subs just like ready to go, which is that's really good, like starting fresh. So and after that I just kind of branched off into Twitch as well. And Twitch has consumed my life at this point. So
as it does, it's actually really hard to stop once you get going. Yeah. So, you know, you got started with demons, and PvP in that game, it's a little bit harder to discover, it feels like, than in Dark Souls, at least it was for me. It's not as kind of like invasions aren't really a factor or in your face as much. Like, did you like at what point in this series did you kind of catch the multiplayer kind of PvP invasion bug?
I've always been a fan of like PvP games and stuff. And so whenever I found out like how it worked, I was just gunning for the item that let me do it. And I didn't encounter it until, what is it? 2-2 right after the armored spider. I killed the Black Phantom, like at the bottom of the elevator. And, I finally got it. The, what is it called in that game? I think the Black Eye Stone. Yep. And, after that, I remember my first invasion ever. It was there. It was 2-2. The moment I got it, I invaded, and I was like, I was a thief character, and I was sticking with the whole like, you know, just thiefish, like daggers only, light armor kind of setup. And I invade, and I go out onto the cliffside where all the lava worms and stuff are.
Yeah.
And there's this just. To me, he seemed gigantic. Obviously, all characters are the same size, but to me, it just felt like he was towering over me. He was this guy in like full on, like, might as well have been in a Strava cosplay. And I was just like, oh my God, it's just this decked out knight. Like, how am I supposed to take him on as a crappy little thief? And so we fought back and forth, just up and down that area until they have like those little docks that are like on the edge of the cliff, like those little wooden like platforms. And we fought our way to there. And at some point, at the time it felt, you know, like pure skill, but now that I know how backstabs work, it probably looked laggy on his end, but that epic fight, like back and forth. And I finally managed to pull off like some kind of backstab on him and just kicked him off my dagger right off the ledge. And
you Lion Kingdom. You killed him like Scar.
Yeah. just booted him off the ledge. And after that, I was just 100% hooked. I was like, oh my God, that was like the most amazing moment I've ever had in any game. It just blew my mind. And so after that, it was just invasion after invasion after invasion. And then I eventually, a lot of my viewers these days would, you know, if they hadn't heard this before, they wouldn't believe me, but I got into like hosting fight clubs and stuff in Demon Souls, and in 4-1, wait, was it 4? Yeah, 4-1 was the Shrine of Storms, like the first area. That's where everybody would fight, and I would host fight clubs. I would summon like 2 summons. They would take turns. If you beat both of them, then you get to fight me. That was like my whole thing in Demon Souls. And then I became more of just purely an invader in Dark Souls, but yeah, it's pretty good.
I love how that story on the edge of 2-2 makes perfect sense because of how I love how brutal backstabs are in Demon Souls.
Yeah,
like that kickoff was so disdainful. It's like, get your fuck off my fucking dagger! Like getting blood on my shit.
How dare
get out
you.
of here! You know? It's so disgusting. I really love it. I guess I maybe didn't know that. So fight clubs, for people who are listening who maybe don't know what those are, and we're going to talk about the different ways that people do engage in PvP in this. The kind of the rote way, the way that the game designed is to have you invade, you go into someone's world and kill them. But people were having so much fun with that that they started kind of setting up organized play, and that's most of what I see in Dark Souls 3. The times where I have got, you know, whenever there are a couple of spots for that where there are huge kind of always rolling duels and fight clubs, these kind of these places for dedicated PvP. And I didn't realize that the kind of organized play went back that far. I felt like that was something that maybe came a little bit later with the the redstone,
the red soapstone
in Dark Souls 1.
Oh no! Well, I mean, that existed in Demon Souls as well, but it's not something you get until like completing the game. They have the red eye soapstone, red eye stone, which works the same way. But yeah, that was that definitely goes back to Demon Souls 4-1. Shrine of Storms. That was just a Fight Club area. Absolutely, that was the first Fight Club area, and
like that big open area where you spawn, like right at the start.
Right at the start, the moment you go into the Shrine of Storms Archstone, that moment, like right where you appear, that first little area before you cross, like underneath that little like overpass thing where what's his name, Satsuki sits at top. That first little spot right there, that was the first Fight Club area as far as I know, and you have like a little rock like off to the right that you kind of provides a tiny little platform. That's where the host would always stand.
Okay.
And like watch over the fight.
That's great. I love that. I love hearing these talks about the kind of old time of doing that, because it reminds me of hearing stories of bands talking about playing at like old venues and stuff. There's a real confusion of real life space and virtual space going on, where it's just like, oh, back in the day around that place, like it feels like a hip hop documentary, a little bit, something like that. Like everyone was outside of this specific corner, and LL Cool J would come out with his boombox, and like it feels a little bit like that, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Really happy to have you. I know what I've watched as far as videos of stuff that you've done. I've watched all the Oro and Peeve stuff, which is super fun and super funny. And that's a PvE kind of co-op thing.
Yeah.
It's if people who have heard me on the show, like if you watch something enough times, you pick up vocal mannerisms. And if anyone's ever heard me do that, like that's you. That's just like something I picked up, and I do it in real life too, which is, and I've had to explain like, where'd you get that? I was like, internet. But yeah, so that's what that's from those videos.
I don't know. Over the years, like the weirdest sounds just start to burst out of me while playing Souls games. I don't know, just like something just jumps up and surprises you, and just I don't know, just this weird just outburst comes out. Can't be helped.
It's I like that a lot, and I watched more recently. I like the Ganker videos, the Gankers Pay the Price videos, because something we'll talk about here is that, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but something that it seems to me, from the outside at least, is that Dark Souls 3 really kind of disincentivizes invasions.
Yeah.
Through a lot of its mechanics. It seems like the odds are really stacked against you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's cool to see. One of the reasons why those videos are fun is because you're kind of like, going into the storm, like it's always going to be, you're fighting multiple people. They're set up to do that. That's what they're doing, is they want people to invade, and so they can just kind of stomp them. And it's cool to see that subverted and see you, to win. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that's changed for Dark Souls 3. So one of the things, invasions used to be a little bit more even. The host or the invader used to actually have a little bit of an advantage, I felt like, in earlier ones, just because the host was dealing with the monsters with the PvE side at the same time during kind of natural invasions. And they could stress that advantage so much to where we ended up getting like what's known as twinks, which are like low soul level, back when soul level was the soul matchmaker, who'd invade you in the Berg with really high level equipment, who had never leveled up and stuff. And it feels a little bit like the pendulum has swung the other way, because now invaders, the game, if you're going to invade somebody, the game shunts you to somebody who has phantoms with them or favors them in the matchmaking. You get half as much Estus. What else am I not thinking of? There's a couple other like
there's quite a few things. Yeah. There's like you mentioned, the game seems to and I think they proved that it like will, whenever you go to invade, it will prioritize players' worlds. First of all, obviously that are invadable, that are embered. Right. But it'll prioritize the ones out of those that have a summon with them. So you are very likely to invade into a gank scenario. On top of that, I think a big issue is, and a lot of people will agree with me on this, obviously, is the fact that in Dark Souls 3, you can walk while using Estus. That is the most painful thing ever, because in Dark Souls 1, if I were to compare to Dark Souls 1, you could they would stand still. So if someone would go to get off and Estus, at the very least, if you're nearby, you can either prevent it with a backstab or at least punish it with a backstab.
Right.
And it made things much more manageable. But now that they can just walk around spinning in circles and stuff, you can rush them down and try to attack them, but they'll heal up like instantly anyway. And then they'll also have like 3 other guys on you at the same time. So that is extremely painful, finding a proper way to punish Estus in a gank scenario. Another one that drives me insane, drives me crazy. Lloyd's talismans in Dark Souls 3. Oh, they're called
Hunter's Charm.
Yeah.
Hunter's Charm.
yeah, Undead Charm. Yeah. Wait, that's right? Undead Charm. Yeah. I'll just call them Lloyd's.
Yeah. We do too.
Lloyd's, yeah. Lloyd's Talismans in Dark Souls 3, you get 5 going into Invasion. In Dark Souls 1, and I'm comparing Dark Souls 1 because as many of my viewers know, I'm not big on Dark Souls 2. I played it for a good bit, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But in Dark Souls 1, you can have like 99, which may be overkill, but the thing is, I don't think it's something that should have been limited. Maybe in Dark Souls 3 because they can use it on invaders as well and prevent invaders from healing. So at least give us like 20, but 5, it's like you're gonna miss at least 2 of those most likely. And then even if you do hit them, you have to break through the line of like 3 other people to get to the host or whoever it is you're trying to kill. And it only lasts, I think, around like 30 seconds or so. So, that's not a bad amount of time, but considering you can't properly punish Estus, and the fact that you only have 5 of these and then it's over and they're constantly summoning more and more people.
Well, that's the other thing too, is there's no limit to what they can summon. So they can just kind of bring in this clown car of phantoms to help them. And if you can't prevent or punish Estus, like it does kind of become, when I've watched online, it does kind of become these like matches of just kind of wearing down resources. Like I watch in your videos and some other videos where like you keep a keen eye for somebody who's on low health, who's not healing, because that means you finally kind of worn them down and that you can kind of go in for the kill, or go in there and actually try to take them out because they're finally out of things to do. And you are dealing with, way far fewer resources when you're doing that. What do you what do you think about that? Like, is that it seems like it's definitely stacked against. Is that a bummer? Like, is that something that does it make you want to play this incarnation of PvP less? Do you think it is worse, or do you think that it was needed and it's good now because we don't have? Because as somebody who just kind of tangentially follows it, I have this kind of vague idea of what the attitude was towards PvP during kind of each generation.
Right.
I know near the end of Dark Souls 1, and this was tons of memes and jokes and everything, but everyone was kind of playing the same build. That was kind of the narrative, I guess. And the game kind of encouraged that. And some of these choices, I think, are to discourage that. That along with the poise thing. But what do you think about that as kind of a qualitative or comparative sense?
It's a bit of a tough question. I know this is where the PvP community is very torn. I'm crazy. I'll just drop that right there. I enjoy getting in these fights with these ridiculous odds stacked against me, just because to me, there's a lot of people who will be like, they'll watch me stream and they will watch me. Like I as I mentioned before, I'm more of a Twitch streamer now than YouTube. I do have more plans for my YouTube, but I haven't uploaded a video in quite a while. But you can watch anytime I play Dark Souls, you see every single invasion. So there are these people who will watch me just get my ass beat for just hours. And they're like, how are you not just throwing your controller right now? How can you even put up with this? Because I try to hunt gankers. I try to get into these scenarios. And it's just, to me, it's because the moment you enjoy fighting multiple opponents, you enjoy the challenge of it. You enjoy, like, you're back to a wall, being like the underdog. then it just kind of loses all sting. Like most people will get ganked and the gankers will taunt them or something, and they'll just like break their controller in half and go around screaming. But the moment you start doing it for sport, then it's, you can enjoy it. But yeah, there are all these issues that are definitely stacking the odds against the invaders, like the ones we mentioned. Trying to think of some others, but regardless, I think I did enjoy, like, I guess the layout of invasions in Dark Souls 1, the fact you could punish Estus, the fact you could manage yourself a bit more than in Dark Souls 3. And in Dark Souls 3, like, you throw in like a seed of a tree of giants.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I know they were in Dark Souls 2 as well, but something about in Dark Souls 3, I know people tell me that it's based on like who the enemy takes aggression to first. They just kind of stick to that. But it just feels like the enemies start to prioritize the invaders, because I'll have all these enemies on me, like especially in like the area after Pontiff, where they rain fireballs down on the courtyard from above. Mm-hmm. And I'll just have all these fireballs coming at me, these giants getting up and stomping at me. And the host and his buddies are just running around having a party, and no enemies are attacking them. And it just blows my mind.
Yeah. But it's when you say it, I mean, because I know that was in Dark Souls 2, but part of the reason why it stings a little bit more here, I think, is just because it's on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So there are all these other disadvantages, and it's like just one more thing.
Yep.
In Dark Souls 2, it was kind of a rare, the odds are a little bit more even. Yeah. So you do this little trick to like, and you got them less in Dark Souls 2, I feel like. In this one, I think it's when you get an invasion, you have a 50% chance of one dropping.
It's a 10% chance is what it is, and they're also renewable from the giant tree, right?
Well, that's when they drop. Yeah, okay. That's where you get them from. So that's what the chance is. But yeah, I definitely thought it was higher.
So it starts at 10 and then it increases each time until 50%. So if you're on if you're on a string of invasions, then you're just kind of more likely to get it.
Okay.
See, I whenever it comes to how they get these, I don't know other than it comes from that damn tree. So,
it's from the collective. It's from their collective will to annoy you. It just kind of manifests from the ether.
Yeah. So like what it sounds like, and just kind of like as somebody who's invaded more often than they're invading, what it sounds like is a lot of these measures are actually kind of meant to de-emphasize the threat of invaders and kind of make them more, like an environmental threat. And kind of stack stuff towards the defender, and kind of like put the onus really on the invader to as the aggressor kind of step up.
Yeah, it's they definitely wanted. It's pretty apparent they wanted to they wanted to try to balance it out as much as possible in the host favor, because obviously the host is the one that, like, more likely than not doesn't want the invader there. So they're kind of trying to balance that out, and I can respect that. But they just pulled out all the stops on this one, which in a weird way, I kind of, I don't want to say I like it, but I do like how every invasion you go into, where you're like 1v4, it's got its own thing that you can't really compare to the other Souls games, where it feels like it's almost like a war zone as opposed to just like an invasion where you're going in. Like if you watched, what is it? I had one video that got like really popular. No End in Sight. Gankers pay the price. No end in sight. They just keep summoning and keep summoning, and it's just a full out war. And I like that, but I just wish they would like give us more Lloyd's talismans to throw around, and maybe have it to where. I would like it where they can't move while they Estus, but I know that's not going to happen. That would be amazing, though. But yeah, a lot of people are having issues with Dark Souls 3 invasions, to the point to where recently I kind of burnt myself out on it like a few months ago, and I came back to the game because I decided, well, wait a minute, I'm not Like everyone stays at like 120, 125. That's like the meta. And I realized I was like, I'm not trying to duel people. I'm trying to hunt gankers. I'm trying to fight 3 and 4v1. Why am I staying at 120, 125? I do want to limit myself to a certain meta, but I decided to go up to 140 to 145, which I think for someone who's fighting gankers, someone who's fighting 4 people at a time, those extra points, depending on the build, those extra points can go a long way, not only for viability, but for just letting you round out your build a bit more and even get more enjoyment out of it. I love like my ninja build at 145 compared to 120, where he had katanas and no shirt. So
he's just like, he's a weird uncle at that point who can't stop talking about his kung fu days. And then, yeah.
I cut this one out of a magazine, but one day I'm going to have it for real.
Yeah. So how is that? So for people, do you think kind of in general, for people who are not like seeking that challenge, has it had, because I noticed, for just kind of from online cursory research, I could be wrong, but it feels like with this game, people who are doing a lot of invading are much more rare, so like yourself does it. Some people do it because they want that sport. But it seems to have pushed the PvP scene to being almost exclusively duels and fight clubs.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Yeah,
I see a lot of that, which is, I think it's kind of, I can see both sides of it. It's kind of neat on my end for somebody who just kind of plays through the game single player to have that quarantined. That's something I have to opt into if I want to engage in it. So if I want to try some PvP like I did kind of like quote unquote prepare for this episode, I didn't get very far in it, but to do that I can do it. But if I want to just play through the game, it's pretty unlikely I get invaded, except for a couple of the hot spots, except for Farron's and the Pontiff's Faithful. Well, but I can also see it kind of makes it this separate game a little bit, right? Like you kind of go in and you can just sit down to duel, like that's what you're doing. You don't have this aspect of it coming up in regular play very often. Does that gel with your experience or no?
The thing with that is I see where you're coming from with that, but it probably didn't work out the way you're expecting it to, where it's like, oh, they're just dueling, so you do your thing, I'll do my thing, great, everyone's happy. No, now I've seen like some of the most top tier PvPers and stuff, since they don't want to deal with the gankers at like 120, 125, they've started making min-max builds at level 70. And I was even watching, I'm gonna call you out, Scott Jund. I don't know.
No, is there beef? Scott. Is this beef?
No.
Exclusive
me and Scott are cool, but it blew my mind the other day. I watched his stream and I'm like, Scott, what level are you? And he pulls up his stats. He's level 36. He's invading at level 36 on this build that he's invading at level 36 to fight gankers. And I'm like, dude, you can do that. Yeah, people have always done low level invasions and stuff here and there, but I want to fight the just try hard. For lack of a better term, just the assholes at like 120, 125. I know not everybody's trying to be a dick, but
right
at like 120, 125, there is the group of gankers who get enjoyment out of just pissing off people, like the hardcore PvPers and stuff. Those are the ones I want to fight. The ones who will just spam taunts, the ones who will stay in that area for days just waiting for invaders and stuff. Those are the ones I like to fight because those are the most satisfying fights.
Yeah.
And nothing against them. A lot of people are like, how do you not hate gankers? It's like, because, dude, it's a video game. It's whatever. You play how you want, I'll play how I want. No big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one reason why I encourage people, if you do PvP and you do duels and all that, and you're kind of turned off from invading because of gankers and stuff, try making a new build at like 140 or 145, because the lowest level you can invade at 140, this is how I planned all this out. At 140, the lowest level you can invade is 126. So it's not interfering with the 120, 125 meta. which is the main meta. Just
And
to be
and
clear.
real quick, just in case anybody's listening doesn't know, meta is the agreed upon soul level that
Right.
people, if they want to engage in PvP, because it's based on level ranges who you can invade. There's kind of a community consensus that will come up that's around the level people want to engage in. And,
Right, and-
just doing some glossary stuff in case anybody doesn't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And like the whole balance is what is the level where you can have like a solid build, but not everything and all that. And 120, 125 is pretty much where the dust settled. And it's not the same for everyone, but that's like the main meta.
It's also a little bit above where people will naturally end the game, at least with Dark Souls 3 as
Right.
well. So it's something that you would stretch up into in order to participate.
Yeah, and I had recently decided on having what I refer to as a quote unquote gank hunting meta, which would be 140, 145. And the thought process was 140 at lowest level can invade 126. So you don't touch that meta. And 145 at the lowest level is 130, which is another. There are people who will make like 130 builds, which I believe people looking to gank will want that extra edge and will go about 130. So I will have like a character that's like 145. And because I'm skipping that 120, 125 meta, because I can't encounter that whenever I invade, for example, after the Pontiff Bonfire, if I'm on like a 120, 125 build, I'm constantly invading fight clubs, that's not what I want.
Right.
So because I'm bypassing that level range, I'm getting like nonstop ganks, which is what I'm looking for. And the good thing about it is it kind of works hand in hand with the 120, 125 meta, because these are the gankers who are like summoning their red signs and stuff while they're trying to get into a fight club. They're summoning red signs, they're getting invaded by them and stuff, and they're just, attacking these people trying to get into duels. So we're kind of working hand in hand, where it's like me and a few others are targeting the gankers, or the gankers are targeting the meta, and it's just, we're kind of like watching the duelist backs and stuff. I'm not saying I win
You're like a security
all my
guard.
fights, but
It's like when the Rolling Stones hired the Hells Angels.
Right.
exactly. Yeah, that's the way I like to think of it, at least. But most time I'll go in there and just get my ass beat. But whatever. It's all in good fun. But yeah, I would say I think going 140, 145 for just to specifically fight gankers, it gives you a reason to like make a new build. To come back, make like a new fresh build with that in mind, as opposed to just the same old 120, 125 builds. But yeah, I'm really enjoying 145.
Yeah,
It's making the pain a little less painful.
What's the trade-off for that? Because obviously, if you extend above the meta, there kind of bites on your lore end up being a little bit less frequent, right? They're just kind of like there's a smaller pool for you to grab from. Like, is that the only trade-off for going that high?
Yeah, you like I said, you can like round out your builds a bit more and stuff. And I have a few builds that at 120, 125 just didn't really work. And so I think they'll work a bit better like 145. And I'm talking like I have like a Pyromancer build that was just stretched too thin at 120, 125, which that's fine for duels. But whenever you're fighting 4v1 and stuff, it's like, for anyone who's like, oh, this scrub going above 125, why not? If I'm not if I'm not trying to duel, why do you care?
You're fighting a combined 480, soul level, or 360 soul level. So going to a little bit above that is not.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I was gonna say it's not like dishonorable, or it's not like a problem. And the honor thing too is something I wanted to mention, but I feel like I accidentally cut you off there. Go ahead and finish your thought. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I think the main complaint that I've heard about it, or the main legitimate complaint, is you're gonna encounter higher level players. You go higher, you're gonna encounter a higher cap of soul level, and that's true. But considering I'm trying to like hunt down the gankers that are targeting the 120, 125 meta, they can't be above level 152. If you go above level 152, you can't be invaded by level 120 anymore. So while yes, you will encounter that, I think more than likely you'll encounter people from like 126 to 152, like somewhere in between there. So that's kind of my thought process behind that. The potential is there to invade higher levels, but whatever dampens the blow a bit more of having to deal with all these people. If you want a little more fun out of it and you think 20 to 25 extra points will, help soften that blow a bit and make your build more enjoyable, then go for it. No reason not to.
Speaking of kind of and this is more of a thing outside of invasions and more in general PvP. What's your take on, or what do you think about the kind of meta rules that have kind of cropped up around like quote unquote honor? Like I mentioned that word earlier, and I know that's kind of a topic
so
in these
funny.
where like people go back and forth, right? Like I've read some very like impassionate things, and as somebody who's on the outside, like I do whatever you want. But it being a thing, I know that's kind of a controversial thing where some people take this super seriously, and there are these kind of rules that range from like, I remember in Dark Souls 1, when I experimented with PvP, people would chug all their Estus,
Honor chug.
yeah, like honor chug.
Sounds like a weird night at a frat.
Or like an energy drink. Hey, go grab yourself a 6-pack of honor chug. But people do like honor chug, or then they're just bowing, obviously, and stuff. But where do you land on that stuff? Is that nonsense, or is that good?
You hit the nail on the head there. This is something I rant about like every stream, whether I want to or not. It comes up, and it's something I can talk endlessly on. Where do I begin? Honor. Let me put it this way. Back in like Demon Souls and my Dark Souls 1 days, I was very much so about like, honor, super fair duel. Like if I invade and I almost expect in a way for the host to stop what he's doing, stop progressing through level, and bow and fight me with honor. Like that was like my mindset back then. But I guess over the years, I just came to realize how ridiculous that is. If you invade, and I'm talking about the people who think of honor in this mindset. That's not everybody. A lot of people consider honor like something restricted, like fight clubs and stuff like that. That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
That's already something where you're in an artificial construct, like that is agreed upon by other people. Yeah.
I always have to talk to my viewers about this because I'll invade and there'll be somebody, like say there'll be a host by themselves and they'll like bow towards me or wave at me or something, and I'll just charge them. I'll just go right for them and start attacking them. And people are like, dude, do you not have like any honor or whatever? And then what happens while I'm doing that? A summon comes out of left field and jumps me. Or I encounter that same host later and he's got a full gank squad with him. So what I'm saying is there should be no place in invasions for this self-imposed honor because you are forcing your way into someone else's game. Let's just throw the whole idea of like the gankers that are like staying in the same area. Throw that out the window for a second. If you're invading a player who's actually progressing through the stage, there's invaders who will show up and they fully expect a host with like 3 summons to have them all stop progressing on the stage, that this dude may be on his last ember and he may be finally about to beat this level that he's been stuck on for hours or whatever the case is. And you as the invader are expecting them to stop what they're doing and all take turns and fight you 1v1. It's like, no, dude, they're going to whip your ass. Like that's like me kicking down your door and then you go to call the cops and I'm like, dude, why don't you fist fight me like a man? It's like, what are you talking about? You just broke into my house.
Yeah.
Like, so it just blows my mind whenever there's these people who are just like, oh my God, like I can't stand how I can't get a 1v1 and, in invasions and whenever I do, they heal and this and that. It's like, yeah, because they're trying not to die. You force your way into their game.
Yeah.
That's what an invasion is.
It's not like there's a EULA that pops up. Like, okay, in order for this to happen, exactly. Like you type out your terms with a PS4 keyboard, and then they have to either accept, at which point you are dropped into a featureless void.
No dark sword, no buffs.
No Rush 15.
Final Destination.
Yep.
No items.
Or just no dice. You get your orb back and you're good. But
it's just it blows my mind that they think that first of all that they're going to do that. Second of all, that they know that these players know their self-imposed rule sets, and it's like the moment they break one, they'll probably be the one to send you hate mail. I used to do that. I used to be so damn salty. Like if you dared one-shot Hornet Ring backstab me in Dark Souls 1, like back in 2012, I was the guy sending you a message like a baby could do that. You're dishonorable. Well, that was me. So I lived that life at one point. But yeah, I think if you're invading, not only doing that, but showing up and seeing something where it's like a single host or something by themselves, and there's another invader fighting them, and you stop and like sit down and let them have their duel or whatever. No, you're not helping anybody. Like that, for all you know, that could be someone who's been ganking for hours who just got, like, that invader could have killed off his phantoms a moment ago, and you show up and now you're, oh, this is an honorable duel. No, it's an invasion. Jump in and murder the guy.
Yeah.
Gank the guy. Like, there's nothing wrong with ganking. So it happens on both sides of the fence. But yeah, invasions, some people just think like like it's a duel. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, this isn't the Old West.
Exactly.
This is there's a video game in front of you.
Yeah,
that you're playing.
The thing that baffles me, again, as somebody who's an outsider at this, is there a legitimate reason? And I know legitimate is a loaded term there. Is there a legitimate reason for kind of like the gesture based rules for this kind of stuff? Because the idea of bowing to somebody when I invade them or when they invade me feels like something from an RP server. Like, if what you're communicating is, I see you and this is about to happen, well, I would imagine them locking on is what communicates that.
Yeah, it goes back to, if somebody shows up, if someone invades you and they get to you and they bow, that's them saying, I'm honorable. Let us have a nice honorable duel together. And you're probably thinking, what's this asshole doing?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm on my last ember. I'm trying to get through this stage. You show up and you bow like we're gonna have a nice, fair fight. Like, no, dude, you're the invader. And
I did not
like heal in the fight. You're gonna get hate mail. Like, how dare you?
Okay, so petition. Let's eliminate honor from the lexicon. Let's just call it manners, because when you call it manners in terms of invading and stuff like that, all of a sudden it sounds a little bit goofy, right?
I think like the idea being, and this is not defending it because it's not like I don't care, but the like, I don't do this, but the is that because when it originally was just a bow thing, it was politeness. At some point it became about having time to get ready because buffs and everything became part of it, where there was this thing where if you were building where like you're only good if you can throw on Dark Moon Blade onto your sword, that had to be like, they had to allow time for that, which to me like kind of robs that of its tactical sense, right? Like, you've chosen this buff build, like you have to find time to put on that buff. That's part of the cost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like make
I've
some space and put on your thing, and then that's fine. I don't need to respect that though. You made the choice.
Yeah, it should be something that you have to like risk in the fight.
Yeah.
Well, people will get so offended. It's like, you won't let me put on my buff. I'm missing all these stat points. It's like, dude, well, that's your choice. That's like saying, like, somebody in Dark Souls 1, Brandon,
so much beef.
Like, I'll go to fight him, and he's like, oh, okay, let me buff my falchion, which if you know Ouroboros build with the buff falchion, it's the most infuriating thing in the world to fight, and you just melt. So it's like no, dude, that should be something that you have to risk in the fight. Like, that's something that always blew my mind. But that goes hand in hand with honor and stuff like that. But that's like the duelist mindset, which is that's fine.
There's a place for it.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I was just saying there's a place for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like fight clubs, that's the place. If you have this mindset, you have no place invading. You can, but the moment things blow up in your face and don't go how you expect them to, you shouldn't complain.
Yeah.
But like I had a few viewers, one in particular, I don't remember who, but they told me, they were like, we got on the topic of honor and ganking and stuff. They were like, "Oh no, dude, I like to be summoned by like hosts, to help them out, like lower level hosts and stuff. I'll go and help them out. But the moment they get invaded, I'm not helping. I sit down on the side and I
That's what you're there for.
and I watch and I make them fight 1v1. It's like, dude, you're not doing your job. You're not helping.
It's really patronizing too. It's really you saying like, oh, this is how you should enjoy this.
Exactly.
I'm gonna make you enjoy this game the way I want you to.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, it just blows my mind. It's like, you're there to keep the host alive at all costs. This dude could be on his last ember. He could have been stuck here for hours, and you're just being this snob who's just like, oh no, you're doing this yourself, sir. And it just blows my mind that you would force them into this whenever you're there to help at all costs and you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
So take that mentality and stick to fight clubs, tournaments, all that. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. That's where it belongs. But in invasions and summons and stuff, it's supposed to be just everyone ganking the hell out of each other. That's just the nature.
It's more hostile, and that's in the game. That's in the text. That's not meta rules or like your opinion. The whole idea behind invasions are to add this sense of menace to the world, in the actual flow of the game, not in kind of the organized, emergent gameplay way of setting up fight clubs and stuff.
Right.
Is the idea is you don't really know what's going to happen. There's this unpredictable danger spike that can happen at any time, and that's supposed to be thrilling and kind of lend to this mood and everything.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's lending to this mood.
Yeah.
So it's not just you saying like, oh, no, it should be like this. It's like, no, that's the game.
Yeah.
Everything else is stuff that we brought to it.
Right. There are very conscious design decisions that have been made to kind of increase the amount of chaos that that happens, kind of around any given corner, not just in the PvE stuff that's kind of like designed in place there, but just in the ways that players can kind of collide.
Yeah, the whole thing with like the meta and like all these self-imposed rules, that's to make like 1v1 fights. That's something the community decided on, to make these fights balanced and allowing you to show off your own personal skill or build or whatever versus someone else's. And that is something that should not leave fight clubs. You can do it in invasions, but it's going to blow up in your face and you're going to get mad about it.
So is there any chance of the community at large kind of taking the design cues that From has put into this and saying like, hey, this is the vision that we have for PvP, specifically invasion kind of PvP in Dark Souls 3. Is there a chance they pick that up and run with it and it's just going to take a while? Or are a lot of people who are looking into this kind of looking for a different game?
I think like I have my opinions on Dark Souls 2. Anyone who's tuned into my stream, it's not for me. But one thing that they did right, absolutely, is the amount of community feedback and everything whenever it comes to PvP. If you enjoy Dark Souls 2, like if you enjoy the core mechanics of Dark Souls 2 and PvP, that game is a damn just wonderland to you. They did a really good job with the PvP for what it is. I personally have issues with like the core mechanics of how the game works, but if you're fine with that, they did a good job of like balancing out the PvP. And a lot of people say that the best PvP in the Souls series is from Dark Souls 2. That's actually become not too out there of an opinion. It's it almost feels like a 50-50 split at this point. And it's not unfounded. They did a great job balancing out the gameplay in it. And so will Dark Souls 3 get that treatment? I don't know. It'd be awesome, but I think it's at the point now where they've kind of shown that they've stacked the odds so much in the host's favor. Like they as we discussed before, they went overboard with that this time. And I think it sets so many people apart to where a lot of PvPers are now either dueling or they've just said, you know, they're done with it. You know, they don't like Dark Souls 3 because of the PvP, because of the odds just 100% stacked against the invader. And like I said, I left the game for like 2 months because I felt that as well. And I only came back whenever I decided it might be fun to try 140, 145, which I'm really enjoying the game again. But yeah, I hope they take a note from the community and just kind of change some stuff around. But I don't know, with the whole poise scenario and how just vague they're being towards like answering the community's questions and stuff, I don't really see it happening. But
Right.
Yeah.
cool.
What so kind of pivoting or moving to something different. What would you say like let's say somebody is like Miracle and they play through these games to kind of get through them, they fight bosses and stuff, and they kind of want to eyeball PvP. How should they get started? What are some kind of basic kind of concepts or things that they should know about?
Okay, you're gonna have to repeat that because there is a really loud motorcycle outside.
Yeah, well, that was me.
He revs it whenever he thinks he's asking a really good question.
It's just it's on the side. It's airbushed. It's a barbarian talking to a wizard, and he says, "Hey Gary, you're doing a good job." And I just rev it up just whenever I feel like I'm doing a good job. So let's say somebody is totally, you know, doesn't know anything about PvP, total PvP virgin. How would you, if let's say they want to get started, what should they do? What are some kind of basic things they should know about, basic concepts, things like that, to get into it?
If we're talking, I guess Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, specifically Dark Souls 3.
I would say if you're wanting to get into PvP, a lot of people will just go online and just like Google like best Dark Souls 3 PvP build or where do I find the dark sword? And it's you can do that. You can go for like the more popular builds and stuff, but the thing that's kept me in PvP for so long is and it drives some people insane, people who are very like min-max, like only using the most viable stuff in the world, which is fine. I like to make almost like characters. It's not always in like an RP sense, but it does have that element to it where I'll make a build centered around a theme or a specific weapon that I think is cool or has a fun move set or whatever. And I'll just build this character that just kind of matches that theme, and I'll go with that. So I would say first and foremost, and this could go for anything, not just PvP. Whenever it comes to a Souls game, you should just get your own feel for it and find like the build and the character that you want. You know, if you get in there and you have someone else tell you exactly where to put your stat points, exactly what weapons to use and everything, it's not going to be an experience really tailored to you. Like sometimes some of the reasons I keep coming back to these games is because I want to play my character. I want to play like my build. Like in Bloodborne, I had a character that was full-blown RP. It was for a long time, it was a Beast Claw only build, which me and my chat named Vincent Pale Dust. Super edgy, but
pretty great.
Yeah, but I would keep going back to Bloodborne because I wanted to play that character, you know? While if I had just this min-max build or something, I would be less inclined to like, oh, I'm really excited to get on and play that build that I didn't come up with. So I would say, you know, make it your own would be good advice for the game itself. But as for PvP, get into duels, fight clubs, stuff like that, so you can kind of get a feel for it. You know, go out there and get your ass kicked. That's kind of how it's got to happen. You got to just get it beat into you so you can get a feel for dealing with other move sets, other tactics, spacing yourself out, how to punish specific things, parry windows, all that stuff. It's just something that just will develop over time. Yeah. You're going to get your ass handed to a million times over. I still get my ass beat on a regular basis. And I'm still learning. And that goes for all the Souls games. It's just a continuous learning experience that you just need to go out there and get your ass kicked. That's pretty much.
it's real
how
similar to
that
the main game, right? Where like you have to stop being afraid of death. Is kind of the point.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it before we started recording. Is that like PvP is almost like this separate game, but it's interesting that the approach is very similar. Where like, the appeal of the single player game is making a guy who's my guy. Like character build is really important to me in these games. It's something I really love, and it's one of the things that some in some entries in the series do better than others. I think for that aspect. And that getting over your fear of death or your fear of failure is still very important to that.
Yeah.
Other than like, and then some of those, rather than looking up, I think, and you can tell me if this lines up with what you think, rather than looking up just kind of the best build, there are a couple of good, like, legitimate or kind of intentional guides about it, where people have done kind of like, hey, these are the basics, like you mentioned spacing. We were talking about that, and if you play fighting games, that's really obvious, and if you know what words mean, it's very obvious what that means. But what it means in Souls is a little bit different, where it's really about knowing weapon ranges, knowing how to stay far away from an enemy to where they will miss you, but you can still step up and counter, or punish that miss, or anything like that. So it is kind of even just knowing those basics. I think that there's a couple of YouTubes. I'll put some stuff in the show notes that I've looked at that kind of gets really down to that basic level, and then it is just straight up practice. Continuously, because which is the step that I haven't done, and my attempts to have balked me because I die.
Oh, I was just gonna say the whenever it comes to like spacing and stuff like that, the thing is that is obviously that's something you need to get used to. I'm still getting used to it, but it's there's something in Souls games called little something called phantom range, which is where weapons, some more than others, more so than others, will tend to have more range than it seems. It's called phantom range for a reason. A lot of people will just say, "Oh, that's lag," but it's more specifically something referred to as phantom range, where like on their screen, like you'll roll away right as they swing, and on their screen, you're still. You haven't fully rolled away yet. You like just initiated the roll or whatever. And if you're still there and they will land the hit, but on your screen, it looks like you got hit from a mile away. You're like, what is that? That's phantom range. And that is one of the biggest things of learning how to deal with. You have to not only know spacing, but know like,
well, you can't trust your eyes.
Yeah.
Like it's
exactly. You can't go just based off of, you could be the best PvPer in the world in any game, and then you come into Souls and you're like, how did that hit me? That sword shouldn't be able to reach me right now. And it's just the nature of Souls. It, for anyone who's not into PvP, it sounds like, oh, that sucks, but it is manageable unless you get someone who's just on like McDonald's Wi-Fi and they're just all over the place. But
it's like you said McDonald's Wi-Fi, but it sounded like you said Donald's Wi-Fi. And I was just thinking,
is this more beef?
I was like, is this more beef? Like this poor guy Donald who has a shitty internet connection.
So like, is phantom range like predictable? Is that something that you can, kind of like go into a situation kind of counting on it, or is it something that like you can have kind of like a dead reckoning of, but there's like variance on either side of it?
It's pretty predictable if it's like a solid connection and stuff. For instance, one of the things that's the toughest to deal with, I feel, is the Goddard twin swords. They're, whenever you have both swords in each hand and you're like dual wielding them, and you do the rolling, the rolling L1, which is that double stab, that has ridiculous phantom range. Like people will abuse that by just spamming it over and over and over. So what I tend to do, which obviously this is better whenever you get a feel for like spacing and stuff and all that. You don't have to rely on all this stuff, but I will just so I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff most of the time, if in my head I'm even worried about phantom range, I'll just roll twice or something like that. But there are players who are like, so good that they can space themselves out so perfectly that they know like where everything's gonna fall and stuff. So that's why like I just go into invasions and do my best against gankers, get my ass beat a lot. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I actually, you know, finish them off or whatever. But the people who sit there and do all the fight clubs and the duelist and stuff, they are just like purely just forever honing their 1v1 skills.
Right.
Which, there's so many of them that can just like whip my ass.
And that's what, if you're starting
just,
out, that's probably what you're going up against too, you know,
Oh, yeah.
at least initially. So real quick, this is something I should have asked earlier, and I just realized this. So when we talk about fight clubs, and this kind of rolls into etiquette, but if somebody is starting out and you walk into a fight club, are those things that people are organizing offline and are just kind of like for folk, or are you just, you know, just stand around and eventually you'll know when to play and when you get your turn?
Well, you're saying like, is that something you can take part in?
Yeah, if you stumble
offline?
across one, you know, like you're just trying to start off. You're like you're Johnny Amateur, and you're starting off in PvP, and you get summoned into, you know, a world, and there is a fight club hanging out there. Is that cool? Like you just you know, party with the boys, or is that something that's kind of a faux pas because that was organized offline by people on Reddit who wanted to set up this thing, and it's not, you know, all comers served.
Well, if they're trying to do that, they'll most likely have a password, which that won't prevent like, you know,
Okay.
random invaders. But if you do invade and you come across this host and there's like, say like 2 or even 3 other like red phantoms standing around, it's good to assume, it's okay to assume that's a fight club and you can probably take part. And what you'll want to do is just kind of go on order of like when you arrived. So there'll be 2 people fighting, and then like after one dies, whoever was there prior to, it's like first come, first serve. They'll go and then you go. So yeah, it's something that people can join into if you happen across one. But due to password matching and stuff now, if you wanna take part in something like that, I think the best thing to do would be to go on Twitch, go to the Dark Souls 3 directory, and find a stream where there is a streamer like hosting a fight club or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of them. They're always on there.
And you just pop in and say, "Hey, room for
yeah,
one more."
Yeah, and hopefully it won't be anyone too try hard who's just like, "Oh my God, you're so bad, get out." But most of the time it'll be, you know, they'll be very welcoming of it. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, here's the password." They'll probably have a command in the chat, and you just put the password in your options and put down your sign. And if the streamer happens to summon you, awesome. If not, that's just kind of the nature of streaming. Especially if it's a bigger stream, you know, they try to get to everyone, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. But yeah, you could definitely, I think Twitch is a great place to take part in stuff like that. And just to find people, you could go into random streams and be like, "Hey, does anybody want to fight? I'm on PS4. Anyone duel? I'm a, you know, this soul level." There's always bound to be someone who's like, "Yeah, I'll fight you." So, yeah, I'd say get involved with like the PvP community itself. Going around just alone
it's a lot like
out there, it's you're bound to not find as many encounters.
it's a lot like getting any skill where you kind of want to get involved with the community, and then just kind of like learn and kind of, you know, lurk, like the same way that you're going to kind of learn some of these basics is probably by watching, you know, and you get that, and then those same people you're watching, you know, are probably part of a message board, either a YouTube service or like Reddit or Twitch, any of those things where you can actually talk to people and set up time to practice and stuff, which is yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of cool in that respect. And even though people can be like super salty about this stuff and kind of be up their ass with honor and rules and the like, the nice thing is that there's always more people out there. So if you go on there and you have a bad experience, somebody's kind of a dick, like, just don't play with that person anymore. You move on and probably be fine.
Someone's always bound to complain about something. And I'm saying like there's, you know, people are going to be more welcoming than not, believe that or not, the Souls community. But if you're like doing your own thing, you have your own build or whatever, and you haven't like gone and looked up like what's the best this, what's this, that, and you're just doing your own thing, someone's bound to complain about something.
Yeah.
And I say just, you know, don't give a damn.
Yeah, parse that Jay-Z
There's no
shoulder brush
pleasing
dot
everyone.
gif. Just knock that stuff off.
Yeah.
There's definitely no pleasing everybody. I in Dark Souls 2, I remember it's the first time I ever had to put my stream into sub-only chat, which is where, for anyone who's not familiar with Twitch, it's where only paying subscribers can chat. And that was because I had probably like 4,000, 5,000 people watching my stream around Dark Souls 2 release. And my chat just freaked out, like newcomers to the stream, I should say, were freaking out because I was using dark magic and a katana, which is like, what is, oh my God, like you are the biggest piece of trash and whatever. And the game had been out like a week. It's just like, oh my God, dude. Like I had to like just close up the chat for a bit just to get a handle on things.
Right.
And so that was the first time I ever had to put in sub only. And then not long after that, it's where I learned you can't please everyone. Not long after that, I was trying a build in Dark Souls 2 that made use of two. It was more like an RP kind of a build where I was trying to make use of two. What's the term for it? The dual stance, power stance.
Mhm.
I was like power stancing two broken thief swords, which are like some of the crappiest weapons in the game. And people were freaking out. They're like, oh my God, you're so bad. Why are you using such a crappy weapon? Do you know how this game works? You're so bad. And I'm like, dude, like people were freaking out on me because I'm using an underpowered weapon. Normally I freak out when I'm using overpowered. So it's
almost like people just
ground.
want to be upset.
Exactly. So there's no middle ground there. That's whenever I realized, you just have to, especially with Souls PvP, do whatever you want and make it your own and be happy with what you have. And if people complain about it, whatever. But
if people complain about it, send it to our friend Jeremy at Dark Souls Hater.
Yeah.
Unless you're
true.
like,
Yeah.
unless you're like in a fight club or tournament or whatever that has very specific rules, obviously, listen to that. They're going to just like not play with you. But otherwise, do your own thing and just don't give a damn what anyone else has to say about it. As long as you're enjoying it, that's fine.
But so we're probably fairly probably close to wrapping up. Unless Cole has something. I was gonna close out and you can answer this, and then if Cole has anything, we can definitely add that on too.
Yeah.
But let's say they do, they're not gonna make a Dark Souls 4. They say they're not gonna make a Bloodborne 2. Let's say that they're lying because there's money to be made. I don't know. Maybe that might be the case. What would you want to see in like a PvP thing? Like what changes would you like to see to make the PvP mechanics and scene kind of better in future entries?
Oh boy. That is very tough. To be honest, I would say I would be happy if they went back to kind of like how Dark Souls 1 worked in terms of invasions and mechanics and all that, but with some of the improvements from Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, namely Dark Souls 3's backstab system. I think that would, that's a game changer. But the thing is, if you can't punish Estus and stuff like that because they're walking around, having a sip out of it every 5 seconds, that's a problem. So I think it just feels like every new installment of the game, it feels like they're so close to perfecting like the PvP system, but so far there's always like one or two things where they're just like, it's like they screwed up royally. Like Dark Souls 1 backstabs, Dark Souls 2 soul memory, Bloodborne's Bell Maiden system.
Bloodborne entry does not exist.
Yeah.
As far as PvP is concerned,
it was not really a thing as far as I understand. Like I did not see a lot of people doing Bloodborne.
And it's because
PvP.
of the Bell Maiden system and the lack of covenants and stuff. And then Dark Souls 3, it's like they perfected everything, but they're like, let's just throw all the odds against the invader. So I think if they eased up on that a bit and didn't like scrap stuff last minute, poise, and we're just a bit more clear with the community, then it would be just the perfect experience. But will they do that? I don't know. It's FromSoft. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
They kind of have their own rationale.
Yeah. But the only thing I've been saying I'd like to see come back is the banish spell from Demon Souls. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a spell in the game that you use, and as a host, you can use this spell, and it creates this shockwave, almost like Wrath of the Gods, but comparing to like Dark Souls 1, Wrath of Gods, not as quick. It's just this aura that just like spreads out from you, and it's dodgeable and stuff. But if you catch an invader in it, it sends them home. It'll disconnect them. And I always thought that was a really cool way to deal with people who didn't want to deal with PvP, and it was like forced upon them. Mm-hmm. It gave them like a way out, as opposed to just disconnecting and pulling the plug. Mm-hmm.
It's a skill-based way out, and it's a way out that's within the fiction of the game.
Right. I mean, you get it from the Yellow King.
Yeah,
it was something your character is doing. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was such a cool implementation, and we haven't seen it since. And I even did there's a playthrough on my YouTube of I called it Gotta Banish Them All. And it was basically me doing that to like quote unquote catch viewers and stuff. And then I would be able to summon them to like help me fight and stuff after I've caught them after they invaded me. So that was a really fun playthrough. But point is, I think that would be a really cool thing to bring back. But then I look at Dark Souls 3 and how dealing with something like that while they have 3 phantoms and all this crap stacked against you, it wouldn't really have a good place there. Yeah. So if they balanced everything out more to where it's fair on both sides, then maybe bring back something like Banish for people who don't necessarily want PvP.
Yeah.
What if it was something that invaders could use to banish helpful phantoms? Like you could swat away their options. Like something you could use, like invaders could use it to get rid of helping phantoms. Like you make it a spell where you could swat away their options, their extras.
At that point, you're basically Ruby Weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Put them out of the fight for a little while.
I don't see them doing that, especially after what we've seen in Dark Souls 3. But I wouldn't be complaining. But but yeah, that's that maybe just how about in Dark Souls 3, FromSoft, if you're listening to this, give us a new kind of talisman in the DLC that we could throw on a host that keeps them from summoning for like a minute. Mm-hmm. That would be cool. I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
but that would be it's kind of the inverse of Banish, but whatever.
The weird thing is that they definitely listen to people's feedback about PvP, because a lot of the like minute weapon adjustments and spell adjustments and things like that are PvP focused, right? Like they
are definitely listening. Yeah.
So it seems within the realm of possibility that they could actually listen to that complaint, but it just hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they'll necessarily make that specific item, but it is possible that they'll make things a little bit more balanced towards invading and incentivize invading a little bit more. Just because we know that they are listening. It's just whether they agree that it's a change that needs to be made.
Yeah.
It's whether they care, and that sounds dismissive, like, but it's not necessarily bad if they don't care. It's like they get to they're making the game they want to make.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And the history of the series is one of oversteering from entry to entry, and even from DLC to DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who even knows? Like I don't see evidence of that in the Ashes of Ariandel, but in the bigger DLC, the $15 one, it's possible that'll have some major changes. Even though the Ashes of Ariandel, it does have the dedicated arena space, which makes me think that the idea of pushing people towards duels and fight clubs was really intentional. Like they wanted to kind of segregate that play experience.
Yeah, it's like if you want to invade, you can, but you're going to be dealing with crap. And I can respect that, but it's just ease up a little bit. It's a bit too much. As someone who enjoys dealing with all that, it's just pump the brakes a bit from FromSoft.
Overcorrecting is definitely a thing that happens with this series. for sure.
My question before we end here, Gary kind of looked to the future there, but something that From did that is kind of different here is kind of add a covenant in the mound builders or mound makers. I always forget
Mound makers.
Yeah, exactly what they're called. Which quite literally they're wild card. They're mad phantoms.
They are the wild card. They're crazy.
Yep.
Those purple guys.
Cut your brake lines. Yeah. Just what do you think about what that has done to kind of like multiplayer in general, and then just PvP in specific? Like, how has that actually just kind of like changed the meta or changed the experience? Like what do you see that role being?
I think that was almost a really, really cool implementation. I think it would be a cool implementation if they could go as far as to enter the boss fight with the host, and because they can either help the host or hurt the host. But the fact that they can't enter the boss room kind of just turns them into just another invader, especially if there's a tree of seed of giants and their whole wild card is like out the window. No one's gonna look at a purple sign, and because no matter what, even you have the white ring on or whatever the case, it shows as purple in their world. So no one's gonna summon a purple sign over like a white or orange sign. It's like, oh, this guy could potentially kill me. You know what? I'm gonna trust him. No one's gonna do that. So they're at the moment they're just kind of like another invader. But if they had it to where there was more of a reason to summon, and I think especially if they are summoned, and obviously not if they invade. If they invade, they should like forego that choice. But if they are summoned, they can enter the boss fight and then potentially turn on them in the boss fight. That would be something really cool. That is full blown wild card, but I don't see them doing that. But
it's something that has always been true through the series, where they've done these kind of gimmick covenants with gimmick PvP, and they've never quite gotten it right. I've had a lot of fun doing purple phantoms just because enemies will aggro to you, so you can use it to kind of lead, like Pied Piper a bunch of guys to the enemy and just kind of fuck them over.
Yeah,
exactly.
I hadn't considered that. I haven't done much purple invasions just because I don't see much incentive. It's a cool idea, but
yeah, it's just for griefing, and it probably doesn't work anymore. It like nobody was really fooled by it, but people would summon me to try to do a fight, and then I would go and come back with two evangelists, and then team up with the level against them, or try to get the evangelist aggro onto them, and that was kind of fun. But it's still not 100% successful. Rat Bros were not totally successful. Gravelording was not successful. They haven't quite got the like kind of fun. I wish they would move a little bit further in that direction, because that stuff is really adds a lot of flavor. I think if they could get it right in a way that people would engage with it. I like the idea of there being more weird covenants, weird PvP stuff, or just make Gravelording work, because that was so cool.
I was hoping they'd bring back Gravelording and do something cool. Gravelording is such a cool concept, but the reality of it is it can work, but you're just standing around doing nothing.
Yeah. They need to have like a little, like you pull up a watch that has a breakout clone on it that you can play while you're waiting for somebody to invade you to get rid of your curse.
Yeah,
like
they have
Commander
so many
games.
There's so many covenants in Dark Souls 3 that are just like they miss the ball. Like the what is the Fingers of Rosaria?
Yeah.
There's no point. There's no point being the covenant at all. Like if I invade with a red orb, with a red eye orb, I'm still getting the covenant reward. I'm still getting the tongues of the people I kill, which I can then turn in. Like I don't even have to have the covenant like equipped. There is no purpose to that covenant. It's completely useless. It's just strictly there as a means of respecking and like changing your character's look if you want. And that's it. Just
that didn't need to be a covenant. That was our item in Dark Souls 2, and that was fine. It didn't need to be tied into a covenant. It just makes it weird.
Yeah, and then
it kind of confuses things.
It just it sucked whenever I finally I gathered so many tongues that I went to go turn them in, and I reached the cap. This was before the patch where they raised the cap. I reached the cap of, I think at the time it was like only like 100 tongues or something, and all I saw was a little message that popped up that's like, "You've turned in a lot of tongues. You can stop now." That's pretty much what it said. And I was just like, okay, like they didn't have any kind of like final reward or anything. And then I look at like Blue Sentinels versus Dark Moon. Like, why the hell would you be a Blue Sentinel versus a Dark Moon? Dark Moon has rewards, and you can get like a buff from it, if you ever get summoned.
Yeah.
While Blue Sentinels, there's no rewards involved.
I will say I really like being a Blue Sentinel, like a blue
I
cop.
was so excited. That was the one covenant I wanted to be in Dark Souls 3, the Blue Sentinels. I was so excited for it.
I've done more PvP in Dark Souls 3 than in any other game, because I will put on that covenant, and I will just be summoned in to help people.
See, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the good guy this time, but it's just like
so tragic.
It's just the odds. First of all, on release, like you would sit around trying to get summoned and it just wouldn't happen. I heard they've adjusted it to where it's a bit better, but now I don't really care to be a Blue Sentinel or anything, because I'm going to be that guy showing up and it's going to be like 4v1. And it's just, that's not going to be fun to me. I like the idea of showing up and protecting the host.
Yeah.
Like in Dark Souls 2, and I'm sorry, I know we're like supposed to end and now I'm rambling.
No, don't worry.
In Dark Souls 2, one of the best experiences I've ever had in the Souls series, I was a Blue Sentinel. This was off stream and everything, so it was just like a full-blown genuine experience. I get summoned to some guy's world. He's in the second DLC, and I appear like right beside him. I think it was him and his summon. I believe he had a summon with him, and I just like pointed like in the direction of like telling them like, keep going. I got this. And they listened and they ran further into the level to continue towards the boss. And it's the coolest feeling in the world to be like, all right, it's just me and this guy. I'm the one thing stopping him from getting to the host. And even then, like if I get killed, as long as I could bide them some time to escape, like such an awesome feeling. I'm getting like chills, goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Such a cool experience. And like I fought the guy and I barely managed to kill him and stuff. And and then the guy probably got to the boss and got his ass kicked, but I'll pretend I saved the day.
Yeah, the puppy's just at the farm.
Yeah, even the happiest of endings is only temporary,
Yeah. And I loved it so much and I was so excited for it in Dark Souls 3, but it's like in Dark Souls 3, that's not going to happen most of the time. You're going to show up and they're going to have their troop of like 20 people and they're going to it's like, oh, one more to add to the pile. Let's gank this idiot. And I'm all for ganking, to like protect the host or whatever. Or like if you show up, I'm not, just to clarify, I'm not like against ganking. It happens on both sides of the fence. I just like to fight gankers. But the thing is, it's so stacked against the invader this time that I kind of don't want to be the Blue Phantom because it's not fun for me.
Yeah.
Because we're just all chasing down this one guy and whoever gets the right running R1 gets the kill. And it's just like,
Yeah.
So if they had it to where there's, the Blue Sentinels had some rewards, and if they had it to where like you could only show up if it was like a host by themselves or a host with one phantom or something like that, some kind of limit on it, then I think I would like it a lot more.
Yeah. So I should add a qualification. I like the Blue Sentinels for the way that I play, because it is a very passive way to do it, and there are no stakes for going in and kind of engaging with it. So as like a bonus to be summoned in, like that is to me a really good ideal way to play it. But like for somebody seriously engaging with it, I could see how that just definitely falls short.
I want to show up and be the hero, but I don't know. Especially with how long you wait around. If you're waiting around for it, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's what when Kole says it meets the way he plays. Like he's probably just playing through the game normally.
Playing through the game.
Yeah.
And then if it happens to happen, it's a bonus. But if you sit down to just play some Blue Sentinel, you're probably gonna be disappointed.
You're gonna be there for a while, and then whenever you show up, they're gonna already have been killed by like 50 people.
Yeah, or they'll be like halfway across the map and they're dead by the time you get there.
Super bummer.
Yeah.
But they need to just adjust a few things and it'd be really good.
Well, hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. Peeve, thanks for joining us, man. This has been really fun, and it's been really helpful because it's good to get your perspective, and it is something that we know jack dick about. Where can people find you online?
These days, as I've said a few times, I'm more of a Twitch streamer, so that'd be twitch.tv/Peeve. Obviously, I still have my YouTube, which haven't been uploading to as much lately, but that would be youtube.com/Peeve Peeverson. And then you could reach me like anytime on my Twitter. I try to respond to everybody who messages me, and that's twitter.com/Peeverson. So
yeah, even if you don't upload on YouTube that often, the old stuff, if you're not familiar with it, is really good. The Oro and Peeve playthrough is really, really fun.
Oh yeah, that would be youtube.com/Oro and Peeve.
Yes. Yeah. I'll put these links in the show notes.
We'll finish it one day. Maybe. Probably not. Maybe. We'll see.
It is I eagerly await if that does happen, because that's a super fun series. I understand why it's hard though, because you're editing multiple video streams and multiple audio streams and the like.
Yeah, we're both doing our own thing. We haven't jumped into that just yet to finish it out. But who knows? Maybe in like 2020 we'll finally finish that.
4 years when we get the new president to ring in President. I don't know. The Miyazaki. Yeah, so as per our custom, we let Peeve go.
Yeah.
But that was great.
Probably the best person we could have gotten for that, because man, oh man, does he know his stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it is cool to hear from some, like, we've been trying to get him on the show for a while, which he alluded to. And I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yeah.
So, if this is the last Souls game, if this is the last PvP special we have, it is good to do that. Even though, we have our customary kind of disclaimer that we are a tourist here. So essentially I don't want to hear a bunch of people being like, I can't believe you said this.
Yep.
Because this is the reason why you brought in somebody who knows more what they're talking about.
Right.
Super nice guy.
So there's some cool stuff going on. The usual kind of things with the Patreon. We mentioned the merch store as well, Duckfeed.tv/shirts, where you can go get that kind of stuff. Gary, people can see us live coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, not doing Bonfireside Chat.
Nope.
But if you like us, you will watch out for fireballs. You go to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which is I think October 19th.
It is the weekend of October the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd.
Yes. We still don't know exactly what day we are performing on, but we'll have a booth.
Au contraire, mon frere.
I was just thinking the other day how actually, if people wanted to up their game, they would switch it to Au contraire. Like, no joke. I was like, literally was just having that thought. I was like, if people who actually want to be less tolerable,
I walked directly into your douche trap.
Yeah, I didn't even say it. I was like, I was like, maybe that'll come up as like a real dire abject suffering stretch where I have nothing left to say. I'll bring up my tight 2 on Au contraire. But
well, damn it. Do you want to cut that out so we have that for later?
No. This is literally the content of it. Yep. This is a way better example than anything.
Well, no, but it's performative. I just it's a little dramatic flair.
You're not serious about it.
Okay, cool. It's like, man, should I feel bad about this? God, so much of my life is spent trying to figure out what I should feel bad about.
The trick answer is nothing. Join the left-hand path. It is.
I was writing the update. The news update, duckfeed.tv/news, here, and we're going to be performing on Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
Okay, all right. So we'll structure our. Well, that's nice because we have our informal meetup the night before rather than our formal meetup, so we know which night we can get drunk. So we will have a meetup around that time. We will have. We'll be at a booth. You can come and say hi.
We're playing Pokemon Yellow.
Yes. Yeah, which is the Dark Souls of Pokemon games. It's like they gotta banish them all. That you've mentioned. Yeah. But yeah, come say hi. It won't be weird.
Nope.
We've done a bunch of these now. I can promise it won't be weird. It's just come up and hang out. We'd love to meet you.
Yep, it's uniformly a good time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even if you're not there to meet us, meet a bunch of the other fans, or more delightfully, meet Brayton or Nick.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, like that made you frame that. I understand that I was trying to be self-effacing and say they're more delightful than us, but it made it sound like they're more delightful than the fans.
Oh, yeah, shit. There we go.
It's okay. We all know what you meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nick and Brayden will be there as well. as well as a bunch of other Duckfeed stalwarts. It was going to be a really good time. If you have anything to say about the Profaned Capital and the Irithyll Dungeon, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact. We're going to be joined by Josh and James from Kane and Runts
Nice.
for that episode. So, I found some people who are neutral enough about Sigurd to have on the episode. I don't actually know if that's the case. I just assume because they're British, they'll be polite.
Yeah, just they'll really take a pummeling. They can just not take a pummeling. They can stand by and watch you pummel Sigurd.
They'll politely disagree rather than actually have their feelings hurt when I say how he's my least favorite NPC in the series.
Oh, Gary, no.
So we're looking forward to that, and then we're wrapping. We're rounding out.
Yeah, that is crazy to think, but it's fucking September.
So a few more episodes. We'll announce our DLC plans, how many episodes that's going to be, etc.
Right after we play them.
A chance to play. Yes.
Right. And we also have a couple more specials lined up here as well.
Yes.
Which
still kind of in the works. We're figuring those out, but we'll make announcements.
Yeah. The next area we're going to cover after Irithyll Dungeons and the Profane Capital, because sometimes people like to know for writing, it's going to be the what consumed King's Garden and the untended graves.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll also in that place probably put in the Dancer of the Boreal Valley.
Oh yeah. It's going to be the most boss heavy episode of the show.
Yeah. So it'll be the beginning of right after that point, but before you actually get into Lothric Castle and stuff. And we don't know who we're gonna have on that show yet. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
If you like the show, you can rate and review it on iTunes.
We've gotten lots of nice reviews lately.
Yeah, that's really appreciated. And if you want to, you can support us on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv, that is the most concrete way you can support the network. And that is how we're able to keep the lights on and pay to have a roof over our head and giblets in Roar's bowl. So that is very appreciated.
Yeah. I think that's just about everything. I can't think of anything else that we can direct people towards, aside from saying thank you so much for listening, and we hope you come back next time.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks. What should they do until next time, Cole?
Watch out for Peeve. He sounds like he knows his stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He was really into making people pay prices.
So the price might be paid.
Umbasa.
Uh-oh, Basa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon